Have you ever paused to wonder why moments of kindness and generosity can suddenly flip into anger or fear, or why some of our deepest desires and emotions get pushed aside, denied, or even hidden from view? Today, on our channel, we're diving into one of Carl Jung's most intriguing and perhaps mysterious ideas, the shadow self. This shadow represents the parts of our personality we're embarrassed of, our repressed traits, impulses, and feelings. But here's the truth: ignoring this hidden side disrupts our emotional balance and stalls our personal growth. In this video, we'll uncover how the shadow shapes our thoughts and behaviors, how it can influence our relationships, and most importantly, practical steps you can take to recognize and embrace it. Ready to lift the veil and meet the unseen parts of your mind? Let's embark on this transformative inner journey together. Carl Jung's shadow self lives in the part of your mind you hardly ever notice. It's where you stash away thoughts, feelings, and urges that feel wrong or embarrassing. Maybe you're proud of being calm and generous, but deep down, you also get jealous, selfish, or greedy, and you push those parts away. Instead of owning them, you pretend they don't exist, yet they hang around in your unconscious, quietly steering how you think, feel, and act. Whenever you judge someone else harshly or feel a sudden burst of anger, it's often your shadow speaking. By spotting these hidden moves, you start to see what you've been ignoring, and that's the first step toward feeling more balanced and real in your everyday life. During childhood, you learn fast which sides of you win approval and which sides get scolded. Maybe your parents praised effort but frowned on tantrums, so you buried your anger. Or friends laughed at your sensitivity, so you hid your tears. As expectations piled up, you stuffed away certain emotions: shame, insecurity, even healthy self-interest. The survival tactic made sense back then, but decades later it still lurks under the surface. Once you lock something out of awareness, it doesn't disappear. It keeps nudging you in indirect ways, creating stress, guilt, or confusion when you least expect it. By spotting where you've been self-editing, you uncover why you sometimes feel split in two. Because the shadow operates quietly, you rarely see its true face. Instead, it pops up as knee-jerk reactions, cravings, or mood swings. You might get inexplicably angry at a co-worker, only to realize later it's actually frustration with your own mistake. Or you angrily accuse a friend of being selfish when you haven't checked in with them for weeks. These slip-ups are shadow leaks, little messages that the part of you you've ignored is trying to get your attention. Imagine underground roots pushing at a sidewalk. You don't see them, but the cracks tell you they're there. That's your shadow, reshaping your mental pavement in ways both big and small. When you keep the shadow off your radar, it can drive you to self-sabotage. You set a big goal, feel excited, then suddenly come up with a dozen reasons to stall. That voice whispering you can't do it is often your shadow self protecting you from potential failure. By making you doubt yourself, or you crave approval so much that you people please until you burn out and resent everyone around you. Maybe your avoidance of anger makes you passive-aggressive instead, lobbing backhanded comments rather than speaking up directly. All these behaviors feel automatic, like you have no choice, yet each one is rooted in some part of you that you've swept under the rug. One of the clearest shadow moves is projection, seeing your hidden traits in other people instead of owning them. If you struggle with jealousy, you might constantly suspect your partner of flirting. If you secretly doubt your own intelligence, you'll find yourself labeling others as know-it-alls. Projection lets you dodge the uncomfortable job of looking inward by making everyone else carry your stuff. The problem is, this distorts your view of reality and poisons relationships. You react to what you imagine instead of what's real, and that gap creates needless tension, misunderstanding, and even hurt feelings on both sides. Triggers are your shadow's telltale signs. Whenever you react strongly to someone's words or actions, your shadow is often at play. If you feel disproportionately annoyed by lateness, maybe you battle secret perfectionism. If criticism sends you into a tailspin, perhaps you hide a fear of not being good enough. When you pause and ask yourself, why did that hit me so hard? You're inviting the shadow into the light. Noticing triggers takes curiosity more than willpower. You're simply observing what sets you off without beating yourself up. Over time, these small reflections map out the territory of your hidden self. Letting the shadow run the show keeps you stuck. You chase happiness, but find yourself repeating the same patterns, falling into unhealthy relationships, hitting emotional walls, or lurching between highs and lows. Because the real issue lives out of sight, no amount of positive thinking or goal setting will fix it. You need to bring the shadow parts into awareness, so you can choose how to respond instead of being driven by old, buried scripts. Once you shine a light on these parts, they lose some of their power to hijack your mood and decisions. Spotting the shadow isn't about giving in to every impulse. It's about recognizing what you've denied and then choosing how to handle it. When anger, envy, or shame bubbles up, you can say to yourself, okay, there's something here I've been avoiding. Instead of snapping or acting out, you pause, breathe, and ask, what's really going on? That tiny gap between feeling and reaction is where growth happens. Over time, you train yourself to notice the inner whispers instead of letting them explode in unintended ways. Shadow work is simply the process of exploring and befriending these hidden parts. It starts by building self-awareness, keeping an eye on reactions, thoughts, and dreams. Journaling is a handy tool. When you write down what upset you and why, patterns emerge. You might spot that certain themes, rejection, failure, control, keep popping up. Naming these themes takes away some of their mystery. Next, look for evidence in your life. Moments when you projected a feeling onto someone else, or when you procrastinated under the guise of nothing feels right. Mindfulness helps too. Simple breathing exercises or brief meditations pull you away from autopilot and into your body and mind in real time. As you sit quietly, you're more likely to notice that tension in your chest, the racing thoughts, the sudden urge to text an ex or binge eat. These signals are the shadow's attempts to get noticed. Instead of dismissing them, you acknowledge, here you are, shadow. Thank you for showing up. This gentle, accepting attitude takes practice, but over time, it builds trust between your conscious self and the hidden self. Peer support or therapy can speed things along. Talking with someone you trust, ideally a counselor or coach, gives voice to what you've been hiding and provides fresh perspective. Sometimes just naming a repressed fear or desire out loud makes it shrink. It's like discovering a dim corner of your room and switching on a lamp. Suddenly you see what was there all along. Group settings can work too, where you hear others describe fears and traits that mirror your own. That sense of, oh, me too, turns isolation into connection. Integrating the shadow means weaving those hidden parts into your everyday life in healthy ways. If you discover a buried talent for witty comebacks, learn to deliver them with kindness instead of sarcasm. If you uncover a need for attention, find positive outlets, creative projects, public speaking, or quality time with friends. When urges arise, treat them like signals pointing to an unmet need rather than moral failures. Over time, what once felt like shameful secrets become tools you can use. Your personality grows richer, more flexible, and ultimately more authentic. By staying curious, gentle, and persistent, you transform the shadow from a threatening dark side into a source of insight and strength. Old patterns loosen their grip as you practice choosing your responses. Relationships improve because you're less likely to misread others through the lens of your own buried feelings. Everyday challenges feel more manageable because you're no longer fighting parts of yourself. Bit by bit, you reclaim energy that used to be spent on hiding or defending. That extra space lets you live with more creativity, compassion, and confidence, exactly the kind of change Jung dreamed we could all achieve. Set aside a little time each day, or even just once a week, to open up a journal and pour out whatever's been brewing inside. When something tough happens, pause and jot down exactly what you felt: anger, shame, envy, whatever it was. Look for patterns in those entries. Do the same few emotions keep popping up? Are there situations or people who always seem to trigger you? Writing this stuff down shines a flashlight into the corners of your mind where hidden feelings hide. You'll start to notice, hey, I get really defensive whenever someone criticizes my work, or I always feel left out when friends make plans without me. Those discoveries are pure gold, clues your unconscious is begging you to see. But journaling is just one tool. Mindfulness is another simple yet powerful way to catch your shadow self in action. You don't need to sit for hours in lotus pose, just pause for a few breaths at random moments. While you're waiting in line, drinking coffee, or even scrolling on your phone, notice what's happening inside. Thoughts racing, body tense, heart thumping. Maybe you're jealous of a friend's success, or you're secretly furious at your partner for something small. Instead of dismissing those feelings, stop overreacting. Practice a gentle curiosity. Interesting jealousy again. I wonder what that's about. That tiny gap between feeling and reacting opens up space to choose a different response next time. Asterisk. If words aren't enough to capture what's swirling inside, try expressing yourself through art or music. Grab a sketchbook and doodle angry shapes or scribble sad lines. Pick up a guitar and improvise a riff that matches your mood. Even dancing wildly in your living room counts. Creative outlets bypass the logical mind and tap straight into emotions that might remain hidden. If you only rely on talking or writing, you might not produce a masterpiece, and that's okay. The point isn't to prove anything. It's simply to let light into those locked up feelings and give them a stage to perform. If only for yourself. As you work through these practices, keep reminding yourself, every person you know has a shadow. It's not a sign of weakness or failure, it's just part of being human. Instead of beating yourself up for having anger, guilt, or insecurity, view those feelings as invitations to learn something new about yourself. When you notice shame, ask, what story am I telling myself about who I should be? When you catch envy, wonder, what need am I longing to meet? By flipping the script, seeing difficult emotions as teachers rather than monsters, you transform the entire process into a path of curiosity and compassion. Let's look how this can actually play out in real life. Take Michael, for example. Outwardly, he had everything going for him: a stable job, a supportive spouse, and 2 kids he adored. But inside, he carried a heavy weight of never feeling good enough. He pushed down that panic with overachievement always. The first to volunteer at work, the one who stayed late to perfect every presentation. At home, he prided himself on being Mr. Easygoing, but when his wife asked for help with bedtime, he snapped, "Can't you see I'm busy?" His family's hurt reactions only piled more guilt on top of his buried doubts. One afternoon, Michael's boss pulled him aside. The feedback wasn't brutal, just suggestions for improvement, but Michael exploded. He felt like a fake, a fraud, a total failure. Instead of storming out, though, he remembered a tip from a podcast: name the emotion. So he sat in his car for 5 minutes, closed his eyes, and admitted, "I feel terrified that I'm not good enough. I feel ashamed that I've been pretending." That simple act of naming opened the floodgates. He drove home and wrote it all down in his journal. The exact words of his boss, the tightness in his chest, the guilt spiraling through his mind. Over the next few days, Michael carved out 10 minutes each evening to revisit those notes. He practiced mindfulness when he felt that old rush of panic, taking 3 deep breaths, noticing how his shoulders hiked up, how his thoughts went to worst-case scenarios. Instead of immediately disappearing into work or Netflix, he sat with the fear and asked, "What's really at stake here?" He realized his childhood mantra, "Don't make mistakes, or you'll disappoint everyone," was still running. The show, once he saw that script, he could start rewriting it. Michael also began dabbling in watercolor painting, something he'd loved as a kid but abandoned under parental pressure. To focus on serious things, at first his paintings looked like muddy blobs. He didn't care. Painting became a mirror for his feelings. A bright red swirl meant rage, a drip of blue meant sadness. When he accidentally smeared green into yellow, he laughed at how his emotions could be tidily contained. That laughter was medicine. It broke the spell of taking himself so seriously. Therapy helped too. Sharing his journal entries with a counselor gave him fresh perspectives. Notice how you call yourself a failure, but you're the only one driving that narrative, she pointed out. In group workshops, hearing strangers describe the same freeze up in front of a boss or that same resentment toward a nagging partner made Michael feel less alone. Those me-too moments turned isolation into connection. Bit by bit, Michael noticed changes. He no longer slammed his laptop shut the moment a difficult email arrived. Instead, he paused, took 3 breaths, and said to himself, "There's that old fear that I'm not enough." Then he chose to ask a colleague for Advice rather than let shame stew in silence. At home, when his daughter spilled juice on the floor, he didn't erupt. He knelt down, felt the pinch of irritation, but said out loud, "I'm annoyed and tired." And that's valid, before calmly getting a rag. His wife later told him she felt seen and heard in a way she hadn't for years. Michael's journey shows that integrating the shadow isn't some mystical ritual. It's a series of small conversations with yourself. Each time you name a feeling, notice a pattern, or express something creatively, you chip away at the power your hidden parts hold over you. And with every chip, you reclaim energy once spent hiding or defending, and you redirect it toward living more fully. When you start to weave your shadow into your everyday life, you tap into unexpected strengths. That anger you once stashed becomes a signal that a boundary needs setting. That envy you felt turns into motivation. You see what others have and figure out how to pursue it for yourself. That guilt you carried transforms into empathy. You remember what it's like to struggle, so you reach out to help others. Far from being a burden, your shadow becomes a guide pointing you toward a richer, more nuanced existence. Here's what to keep in mind as you continue this work. 1. Be consistent, but gentle. You don't have to journal every day, even a few times a week moves the needle. Treat missed entries like gentle reminders, not proof you're backsliding. 2. Celebrate small wins. Notice when you respond differently to criticism, to stress, to a loved one's request, and give yourself credit. These tiny shifts add up. 3. Lean on community. Whether it's a trusted friend, a coach, or an online group, sharing your experiences keeps you motivated and reminds you you're not alone. 4. Keep experimenting. If writing feels stale, try a voice memo. If mindfulness seems dry, go for a mindful walk in the park. The goal is awareness, not perfection. 5. Stay curious. Whenever you catch yourself in projection or knee-jerk reaction, ask what's under this, rather than why am I so messed up. Curiosity opens doors, shame slams them shut. Remember, the shadow isn't a villain to be banished, nor a prize to be won. It's part of your whole self, like the rough edges of a gemstone that give it character. By bringing those edges into the light, you polish your inner diamond. You become more compassionate toward yourself, more understanding of others, and more capable of steering your life in the direction you truly want. So go ahead, pick up your journal, close your eyes for a moment of mindful breathing, or grab that old guitar you haven't touched in years. Let your hidden parts speak, whether in words, images, or melodies. Embrace the full spectrum of who you are, the light, the dark, and everything in between. Because when you integrate your shadow self, you don't just survive, you shine. You shine.